So I understand I have about a half hour, going to aim to give about a 20-minute talk, and then would love to do discussion and Q&A with the audience. My title or my talk today is entitled Homesteading in the Quadratic Lands. It's my second time giving an iteration of this talk, and so it's kind of like it's a novel one. So we're going to roll with it. We're going to get weird, and we're going to see how it goes. So hi, everyone. I am Kevin Owocki. You may know me as the founder of Gitcoin.co, the largest crowdfunding platform in the Ethereum space, to my knowledge. I am a community organizer in Boulder, Colorado, organizer of the Boulder Blockchain Meetup, and really love the community out here in Colorado, Shill, Colorado. In Gitcoin, my work, I've been recently past my 3-year anniversary with Consensus. So thank you so much to Consensus and to Joe for sponsoring Gitcoin. I am also in I guess a sister portfolio company to the Truffle team, who I understand are also sponsored by Consensus. So hi, Tim. How's it going? Thank you for having me to Truffle. This is an amazing event, and can't wait to see everyone in person in 2021 at TruffleCon. I think last year I was the lead of the hacky sack circle in the lobby, so we may have played hacky sack with each other last year. So Gitcoin's mission is to grow and sustain open source software. We believe that open source is a fundamental good for the world. It's the reason why things move so fast in the blockchain space. Open source software creates $500 billion worth of value in the internet. It's our digital infrastructure. But the people who are working on open source software do not have the ability to monetize their work in open source software. And I think that it's a fundamental injustice that all of this value is being created by open source, and software developers are not able to pay their mortgage with the work that they're doing for our digital infrastructure. So we created Gitcoin, which is a tool where you can get coins if you're a software engineer. See what we did there, Gitcoin. And basically, so far, we've created $8 million in funding for open source software in the Ethereum/blockchain space. And the whole idea here is that with open source money, basically all of the money that in the old financial system used to go to Wall Street, now to some back office on Wall Street that was spent on IT is now being spent on open source software. So we can actually create new revenue streams and new business models for open source software. And open source software funding is this sort of age-old problem that software developers who have been releasing their code on GitHub and SourceForge before it had this problem with monetizing their work because they're giving away all of the code for free, right? So that's in the definition of open source software. It's available for free out, and it can be copied by anyone. It's non-excludable and non-rivalrous. And there's this problem in when you're trying to fund things that are non-excludable and non-rivalrous. These things are called public goods, and they're subject to something that is called the free rider problems, which is basically goes, why would I fund open source software? I could just get it for free already. So that's why we have the asymmetry between value creation and value captured in the open source software space. And what I'm really excited about is what blockchain networks bring to open source software and the ability to monetize them. Not only do we have hundreds of billions of dollars of assets, depending on the day, that are sloshing around and could be used to fund open source software. The fact that Ethereum is this programmable blockchain and it's kind of like infrastructure means that you can build new foundations, new institutions that are going to be that can be used to solve public goods problems, can be used to solve coordination failures. And so I've started to think in this paradigm that Andreessen Horowitz has popularized, that Ethereum is like a city. So like a city, you've got a community of loosely affiliated individuals who agree about the location of their work and residence in the case of a city. And in the case of Ethereum, the protocol that they use to run and the services, the composable services that are built on top of the protocol. And I think that that's the top-down view of what the Ethereum network is. But from a bottoms-up view, Ethereum is a community. So basically a place for people who are dissatisfied with the status quo, with the existing financial system, to experiment and in creating new economic systems. And it's within the nuzzle of the Ethereum community that Gitcoin has been experimenting with new paradigms for human organization. And the one that I think started it all was created by Glenn Weil and Radical Markets. It's called Quadratic voting. It's a collective decision-making procedure where individuals allocate votes according to the degree of preference of their preferences, and rather than just the direction of their preferences. And what's really cool about quadratic voting is that it creates more democracy in decision-making because it addresses issues associated with majority rule and really allows people to express not only the direction, but the degree of their preferences. And in a complex world, it's important to be able to capture the wisdom of the democratic community where they want to go in a more fine-grained way. And that's what's really exciting about quadratic voting to me. Gitcoin itself is famous for quadratic funding. So basically, this is a scheme in which you raise a matching round that's supposed to be allocated towards public goods, and then you run a crowdfunding round alongside that matching round, and you allocate funding to the projects in the crowdfunding round according to the number of contributors that have contributed during the crowdfunding round. And so basically the idea here is that because we're weighting the number of contributors that are in a crowdfunding round and contributing to a grant, we are optimizing for the democratic view of what are the popular projects in a category of public-private goods. This creates more democracy in public goods funding decisions. So basically, as opposed to having a central grant administrator for your blockchain network, now you can push power out to the edges, and projects can be funded if they're respected by the community. Java would like me to know that I have a new version of Java available. So that's why my slides have gone away. Let's see if I can fix that. Thanks, Sun Microsystems. All right, so that's quadratic funding. That's why I think it's the bee's knees in theory. In reality, quadratic funding is what powers Gitcoin in funding open source software. So as I said earlier, we're one of the largest crowdfunding platforms in the Ethereum community, and we have run 7 rounds of funding for open source software that's worth about almost $4 million. We're coming up on now. And so every 2 or 3 months in the Ethereum community, you can expect that Gitcoin is going to be running a quadratic funding round. And basically the idea is to create a consistency in the quadratic funding rounds so that if your peers respect your projects and they will fund you every Gitcoin grants round, then you will have a business model for your open source software project, at least within the Ethereum community. So this is what the network of funders in the Ethereum community looks like. Like I said, we've done 7 rounds of funding worth about $3.5 million. This is a data set from the most recent Gitcoin grants round 7. And we got about 1,300 contributions worth $700K. And this is the map of the preferences of the Ethereum community and what public goods they want to fund. So we take every grant and user in the ecosystem, in the Gitcoin ecosystem. There's about 1,000 users and 1,000 grants. And we put them into a graph, and then we draw an edge between them if there's a grant funding relationship between them. So you can see that we're kind of creating like a mesh network of money, of support for public goods by using quadratic funding. And so that's why I think that like we've not only taken the theory of quadratic funding, which I think is really, really elegant in itself, and we've turned it into reality in Gitcoin grants and in the Ethereum community because of this bottoms-up infrastructure that the Ethereum community has provided to us. So this has been a hotbed of innovation, but Gitcoin's not stopping there. We recently did a quadratic funding experiment in downtown Boulder to support downtown everyday retail businesses that were having problems making ends meet after coronavirus. And we used quadratic funding outside of the blockchain space. So we proved that the incentive model works outside of the blockchain space, and I'm super happy to have exited both the Boulder bubble and the blockchain bubble. And actually, I didn't exit the Boulder bubble for this exact campaign, but we did exit the blockchain bubble and prove that quadratic funding works outside of just the blockchain space. And we're also just wrapped up a hackathon with the Radical Exchange community to create more quadratic funding experiments in the world. And I think that the reason that we've done that is because we want to take the world to the quadratic lands. We want to take them. We want to take people to this sort of like new type of online community where public goods can be funded, where we can optimize for the commons and what's good for our digital infrastructure. And we now have programmable money. So from first principles, if we value open source software, if we value public goods, then we can program those values into our money using tools like Truffle and Ethereum, and we can create a portal to the quadratic lands. We can create a portal to a place where public goods are funded, open source software and public goods are funded. And I'm going to go through, I guess this presentation is called Homesteading in the Quadratic Lands. And it's because I believe that we've built this portal to the quadratic lands already using quadratic funding, using DAOs, using programmable money. We have created it. And now I really think of the Ethereum community as homesteading in the quadratic lands. We have set up camp in this world where we figured out how to fund public goods. And at the center of it all, I think, is digital identity. So basically, the Ethereum mempool is a dark forest because everyone is playing this zero-sum game of how much Ethereum can they get. And basically, if you can't trust anyone else in the Ethereum network, then you're going to have a really, really hard time coordinating with them to do things like fund our commons. And one of the core pillars of the infrastructure I think the Ethereum community is building is digital identity, which is going to allow us to create reputation, which is going to allow us to create trust, and that will allow us to coordinate. So basically, digital identity can take us to these more democratic systems where we're going from one CPU, one vote, or $1, one vote, more towards one human, one vote. And I think that proof of unique human is this interesting pillar that's going to unlock more digital democracy and more coordination gains. When you understand someone's reputation in the Ethereum network, then you're going to be able to have repeat interactions with them. You're going to be able to create positive sum games, and you're going to be able to create coordination between them. And so I think digital identity is going to be this like core pillar of how DAOs and how digital ecosystems operate in the future. But I also have to kind of sound a warning because the privacy of your digital identity is really important. I think it's important that we allow people to have consent over their digital identity. And that's what's really cool about innovations in digital IDs like Bright ID and Identa Network, all of which Gitcoin is integrating with, because identity has a value to the quadratic funding equation. So basically, we're trying to bootstrap some of these digital identity networks with the Gitcoin ecosystem. And it goes without saying that this would all not be possible without Ethereum. Ethereum enables us to have all of these new sort of like attributes to an economic system that didn't exist before. Ethereum enables transparent economic games that can't change on you. So basically, I think that Ethereum is a key to this portal to the quadratic lands, a key to homesteading in the quadratic lands, because we can now create these transparent economic games that can't change on you. And the cool thing about that is that you can basically make an investment in quadratic funding as a digital age institution, because you know that it's not going to get corrupted as it gets larger. Quadratic funding, the formula stays the same. You can see the code of the people who are deploying it because of Ethereum and open source software. There's this concept that I've been learning a little bit about in the context of digital public goods called bentoism. And basically, it's this thing that was started by Yancey Strickler, the founder of Kickstarter. And the whole idea is that when you're building a digital economic system, you want to take all of the rational economic actors in that system, and you want to give them incentives not just to optimize for what's good for them right now, what's good for instant gratification, but you also want to have them make decisions based off of the time axis. So basically, what's good in the future? What should we optimize for in the future? And what should we optimize for if we're optimizing for the entire group of people, not just optimizing for you? So I think that one of the problems with markets as we've had them in the pre-blockchain era is that a lot of the incentive models are built around instant gratification in now me. If we have programmable money and we have digital reputation, we've got the foundation to create coordination games where groups of humans can optimize for what is good for them in the future. And because of transparency and immutability, they can have trust in what's going to be happening in the future. And we can create these coordination games. Like Gitcoin Grants is basically like a massively multiplayer online coordination game that allows us to optimize for our digital infrastructure for us instead of just me. And I think that that's really powerful because the whole definition of a coordination failure is when a group of people fail to coordinate and create the best outcome because they all have selfish reasons to defect and only optimize for themselves. So if you can create these multiplayer games where people can coordinate together and create a better future for future us, then I think that that's super powerful. And there's lots of ways to skin this cat. It's not just quadratic funding. Gitcoin's done quadratic funding for the last 18 months, but I'm really excited about DAOs. I'm really excited about Circle's UBI. I'm really excited about what the Radical community is doing, what SourceCred is doing. There are multiple ways to program our values into our money and create markets that are going to fund public goods and are going to be foundational institutions, foundational infrastructure in the quadratic lands, and are going to allow us to create this better economic environment for public goods. So the TLDR of my talk is that we are already on the other side of this portal to the quadratic lands. We are homesteading in the quadratic lands right now. And there's a community of tens of thousands of Ethereans who are building infrastructure for the digital age, building public goods coordination problems on top of this transparent, immutable substrate of Ethereum. And if you're doing Truffle to do it, if you're using Truffle to do it, then I commend you. I think that the Ethereum space, I think the blockchain space is a really important place to be building digital infrastructure. I hope that you'll consider reaching out to Gitcoin and engaging in one of our hackathons, engaging in Gitcoin grants round. These are all tools that are meant to help developers get coins while they're building the quadratic lands, while we're building this new, better place for humanity. And so I'm really excited about homesteading in the quadratic lands because it means that we've found this place and we found a place where we want to settle and create a Schelling point for better human economic systems. But I'm really excited to see what happens when we build a metropolis in the quadratic lands, when we're no longer just settlers in the quadratic lands, but blockchain economic systems are going to be a foundational part of the world economic system. And I really can't wait for that day. I can't wait to see what the Truffle community comes up with, what Gitcoin community comes up with, and looking forward to exploring the design space with you all. So that's my talk. I guess what will I do now? I'll take a look at the chat and see if anyone has any questions or comments or thoughts. And if not, I'll see you on the internet, on Trace Internets. Nick, thank you so much for having me. It's amazing what Truffle has accomplished in the last couple of years. And I built the first version of Gitcoin with Truffle. So happy to be invited to speak at your conference. David, thank you so much for having me. Tim, thank you as well. I feel like you're all saying thanks to me now, but I'm going to take your money in the charity poker tournament later. So you won't be thanking me then. Especially you, David. Both Davids. I'll take the money of both Davids. Well, I'm going to head over, unless there's some actual questions. Thank you for the thanks. Unless there's the quadratic poker. I like this Ben Town guy. That is just the right level of trolling for where I'm at right now in my Friday evening. Yeah. So I'm going to go head over to Vivek's talk. Vivek is my co-founder and COO of Gitcoin, and he's talking about Gitcoin kernel in another room. Alan asks, how close are we to true proof of human IDs? I wish I could. Can I invite you up on stage, Alan? Oh no, wait! I invited you to a video call, and I think it's like a private meeting room. Damn, I'm so used to Clubhouse where you can like invite someone up on stage with you to talk. I think Bright ID and Idena Network and Apollo and Circles UBI are starting to experiment with like true proof of human unique IDs. And I mean, the key is like we already have KYC, right? So you could already like sort of do some sort of like level of proof of human IDs, but the key is to do it in a privacy preserving way, in a decentralized way. But Bright ID and Idena Network and Circles UBI are some of the ones that I'm really excited about. And Democracy Earth put out a paper about proof of humanity. And I'd say check out this paper, Alan. It covers some of the most promising projects that are creating proof of human. Rishad, hi, how's it going? Yes, you can ask a beginner question. I understand the information can be overwhelming. I've been doing this for 3 years professionally and another 3 before it, consuming every information I could get on Reddit. So yeah, sometimes I forget that beginner's mind. And hey, Tim, I'm having a IPA. Colorado, man, you got to have IPAs. Yeah, it's got to maintain a small, healthy buzz before the charity poker tournament when I take your money. Cool. Well, I'm going to go hang out at Vivek's talk. Vivek is talking about Gitcoin kernel, so I'll see you all over there. Thanks so much for coming to my talk. It was amazing to be here, Truffle. Love you guys.